Hey everyone, Reese here, and something slightly different this time. I haven't done one of these vlog type videos for quite a while now, so I thought I'd sit down and just put a very quick video together just to talk about some of my projects, talk about the channel, talk about some updates on some older things and some future things. I've very recently passed the 700 subscriber mark, which is absolutely fantastic. I think the channel's grown really quickly, especially considering I've only really been doing this for 6 months. So just a big thank you to all of my subscribers and my patrons, of course, for all of your support. It's really, really appreciated, and you know, it's really spurring me to sort of carry on and keep doing this. So on the subject of projects and tutorials, this is coming off the back of my One Joystick to Rule Them All video, the latest one in my One Joystick to Rule Them All series. Part 3, which is a tutorial on how to build one of these things to connect a Neo Geo joystick to a Sega Mega Drive. I've covered some other platforms like Atari and Amstrad and the Sega Master System, the MSX. Really enjoying putting these together. This one was a bit of a slog, to be fair. Of course, we've got the multiplexer IC in here, which did complicate matters and meant that I had to build it all on perf board and all of that kind of thing. But that's kind of the whole point of the series, just kind of learning about this stuff and researching it and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, ended up taking a bit longer than I expected, but the last thing I want to do is put out any kind of misinformation or anything dangerous that could damage people's hardware or anything like that. So just a case of really thoroughly researching things and building prototypes and that kind of thing, which thankfully is a process I enjoy and kind of the reason I started this channel in the first place. That said, not all of my projects make it to the channel. I'm not a YouTuber, so to speak. Obviously, I do video some of my projects and edit them up nicely and put them out on YouTube, but essentially, this is stuff I've been tinkering with for years. It's what I do in my spare time. And there are a lot of projects that I work on that don't make it to YouTube. I mean, I tend to post them on my other social media like Instagram and Twitter. Just computer restorations, upgrades, very basic fixes for stuff. If I recorded anything and everything, I'd end up with hours and hours of footage, gigabytes of stuff, you know, on my NAS just taking up space that I'd probably never get around to doing anything with. And it would just be a pain, you know, setting up the cameras and the lights and everything. And sometimes I just want to, you know, crack open a computer and start fiddling with stuff and not have to worry about any of that stuff. So without further ado, I think I've waffled on far too much now. Let's get into the projects and see what I've been up to. So the first and really the main thing I want to talk about in this video is this computer here. Now this is my Acorn Archimedes A305 from 1987. And if you know your computer history, you'll know that this was the very first home computer to use an ARM CPU. In fact, I think it was the very first of any kind of computer to use an ARM CPU. Now, the reason I wanted to get back onto refurbishing this is because obviously Apple announced recently that they would be putting ARM CPUs in their desktop and laptop PCs. Obviously, they've had a lot of success with those in their mobile devices and iPads and things over the past few years. So, perfectly sensible decision in my mind. And I just thought it would be great to be able to tell the history of the ARM CPU and how it was developed and all of that kind of thing. So ARM was developed by Acorn, a British company, in the mid-80s, and eventually they stuck it inside a computer and released it, and this was the end result. So I think it's important to have a really nice example of this computer to be able to tell its story. Now, I've actually owned the computer and the keyboard and the mouse for quite a few years now. I used to use this with an Atari monitor, and then I modified some things internally to do with the video output so I could use it with a later Acorn monitor. Obviously now I've found this, which is an Acorn AKF11 monitor, which is the proper monitor for the computer. This, if you're a Commodore person at all, you probably recognise this as a 1081 because it was also available badged in a Commodore version as the 1081. This doesn't have the S-Video input that the 1081 has, so it just has the RGB SCART input and TTL RGB, of course. It's based on the Philips CM8833, not the Mark II, but the Mark I. A really, really fantastic 15 kHz low resolution monitor. So I was really, really pleased to finally get my hands on one. As you can see, the front flap is broken. It's there. Unfortunately, it's missing one of the tabs. So I'm probably going to have to look at getting something 3D printed maybe to replace that. Also, it was completely filthy. I actually bought it as, for parts or spares or repair. the original seller said that it was shutting down after a couple of minutes and not really working properly, but I haven't found that at all in my testing. It's actually working perfectly fine. But I have stripped the monitor down just to give it a good clean, and also to remove a really weird screen filter thing that had been fitted. It was like a fabric mesh over the front of the screen. It's an aftermarket thing, but because of the way it was installed internally, meant that I had to strip down the whole monitor just to get it out. Of course, that also meant that I could clean it out and clean out 30 years worth of dust and stuff, so that's always well worth doing, so not really a problem at all. It just means I had to de-energise the tube. The second one I've done in as many weeks, and I'll get onto the other monitor in a few minutes' time. So, as you can see, the other kind of area that I've been focusing on this machine is the keyboard. Now, this is a Keytronic keyboard. And if you've seen the 8-Bit Guy video, I think it was on the Compact Portable or maybe the IBM 5155 or something like that. The Keytronic keyboard uses foam pads with a foil layer on the bottom, which press against like a membrane to complete the circuit. Now, obviously, the foam degrades over time. And in his video, he mentioned that there was a company called Texelec over in Texas who are making new foam pads. So I've ordered a set of those. They're going to take a while to arrive, obviously. The other thing about these Keytronic keyboards are these rubber domes, which are used to spring the keys back up. Now, I've had no end of problems with this keyboard with the keys sticking down, obviously because these rubber domes are very old and perished and not in very nice condition at all anymore. But I decided to do some experimentation and discovered that the key springs from my Amiga 600 actually fit really nicely on there, and not only do they fit and work amazingly well, but they also really improve the feel of the keys, in my opinion. So I found a company called Retro Hacks. Yet again, not a British company. They're over in Europe somewhere, Germany or somewhere, I think. So again, they're going to take a while to arrive. But a complete set of Amiga key springs, which I intend to fit to this, which should really improve the keyboard. I've also done some retro brighting. The keyboard was kind of a really horrible yellow colour. A really uneven yellowing on some of the keys and stuff as well. So I've just given it a small treatment. Obviously, it's not gone fully back to completely bright white, but I'm quite happy with that. So, and on that subject, I also did the front bezel of the computer itself here. Found a source for new old stock case badges, which I was really pleased with. A seller called 4D Pie Shop over on eBay. So I'll put links to all of those parts and things down in the description so you can check them out. But yeah, so, also this very cool Archimedes mouse mat, which I bought. I don't remember the name of the seller at the moment, but I'll put a link down in the description for that as well. So yeah, really, really cool thing, and very much looking forward to getting it all back to its former glory and putting that video together later on in the year. The other computer that's been taking up a lot of my time is my retro man cave NetVista. Now, as you'll probably recall, I put together a video a couple of months back when I first won this, just unboxing it and setting it up and that kind of stuff. Retro Man Cave is a fellow YouTube channel run by a really nice guy called Neil. He was doing a lot of fundraising and stuff at the time, refurbished a few of these PCs and sold them to raise some money for a local healthcare charity. He's just sold the fourth and final one. As you can see, I've been tracking down the accessories for this. So I've found the matching keyboard, the matching mouse, and the matching monitor as well. The second monitor that I've worked on this month and had to completely strip down and rebuild. This, I don't know if somebody found it in a field or what, but it was full of mud and leaves. It was sold as not working. It was just about working when it arrived, but it was making some pretty scary noises and stuff. Got it to the point where it's kind of acceptable. It's got a bit of an odd pink hue to it and occasionally makes a strange arcing or cracking noise, so I think maybe a flyback replacement is in order. Also, it doesn't have the stand, but for what I paid for it, I can't really complain. The really cool thing about the NetVista is that LGR, Clint from LGR, recently announced that he'd bought one, and he put out a video about it. Yeah, so it's quite funny. It really tickled me, actually, because he's kind of a big influence of mine, always has been. I've been watching his channel for years. And we got into a bit of a conversation over on Twitter, and came up with this idea for a mug. So Neil from Retro Man Cave very kindly has put together these mugs for members of the NetVista Club. I know that Clint received his in the past couple of days, and I've had mine for a while now. So thanks to Neil for that, because that's a really nice little touch. One of the reasons I am a fan of his channel, just because of the community stuff that he does and silly little things like that. So yeah, just be on the lookout for an update video on my NetVista, just covering the upgrades and some benchmarks before and after and that kind of stuff. That should be along, obviously now I have all the hardware, that should be along hopefully in the near future. So pickups for this month. Now, one of the things I've kind of been collecting lately is big box PC games. If you know me, you'll know that not only am I into fixing electronic stuff, but I also collect boxed games for a few different platforms, and I'm starting to get back into the PC again. Now, one of the games that I picked up recently was this, which is the original Grand Theft Auto. This box isn't in brilliant condition, but then I didn't really pay a huge amount of money for it, so that's fine. But when it arrived, I was quite surprised to read the system requirements on the side of the box. I'm not sure if the camera's going to focus on that or not, but essentially I was really shocked to see that it runs on a 486. I mean, okay, it's a 486 DX4 which is a top-of-the-range 486. Only requires 16 meg of RAM and a 1 meg VESA compatible video card, which just so happens to be the spec of my RM486 here. Now, I have been playing this, and it runs surprisingly well. I mean, frame rate drops down into single figures fairly regularly, but it's playable and I've had quite a lot of fun with it. And this PC, whenever it comes up in the background of my videos or in my other social media posts, I always get comments from people saying, oh, you know, is that an RM Nimbus? Well, it's not, it's the RM Window box, which was the successor to the Nimbus, but you know, I remember those computers from school, and, you know, can you tell us a bit more about the RM and show us the RM and all of that kind of stuff. And I really, really want to tell the story of this machine and put together a proper video on it. It's also got some really nice period upgrades in it, which I really want to show you. So that's something I am definitely planning on doing in the future. But just a really fantastic machine, and like I say, I think the surprise of the month for me was actually playing Grand Theft Auto on it. So yet another thing I can use it for other than Doom. In the more immediate future, I've just kind of taken a short break from my One Joystick to Rule Them All series just to do some work on my Atari 520 ST. Now, this is the original 1985 520 ST, one of my absolute favourite computers in my collection. I use this all the time for playing my old Atari ST games and stuff. Really, really love this thing. But it's kind of starting to develop some jail bars across the screen, so basically faint vertical lines. They're usually caused by problems with the power supply. Basically the capacitors in the power supply starting to go bad. I'm not really comfortable using it knowing that the power supply is starting to go bad, because it could cause some much more serious damage. So I wanted to address that as soon as I could. But I have had some fellow Atari ST owners get in touch and say that they're having the same issue. What's the best way to fix it? So I thought it would be worthwhile putting together just a quick video on that, and it will be a very short and very quick one, just showing what I've done to sort of fix the issue and show some comparison shots before and after. The other project that I want to do on this machine, and the other thing that I've sort of picked up this month, are some RAM chips for a RAM upgrade. So this has 512K from the factory, but back in the day there was a very popular RAM upgrade that was done by Atari service centres and that kind of thing. It's been superseded by modern RAM upgrades, but I wanted to replace the RAM chips anyway with some new ones just to future-proof it. So I'm going to show how that worked and how they used to do it. Probably not recommended for, you know, in the modern day, because like I say, there are much better replacements that have come onto the market, but just something I just wanted to document, just to show how it works and show how they did it at the time, really. Just while we're on the subject of the Atari ST, another game I picked up this month was Magic Pockets, which is a Bitmap Brothers game. I was a huge fan of the Bitmap Brothers games back in the day, although to be fair I'd never actually played Magic Pockets, so it'll be fun checking that one out. I've been building towards a complete collection of Bitmap Brothers games on the ST for quite a while now, and it's pretty much the last one. There is an expansion pack for Cadaver, which I don't have, which I'm kind of keeping an eye out for, but it was literally just a floppy disk and not in a proper box or anything, so it's not a huge priority for me at the moment. But really cool to have that complete set there. My other Atari ST related pickup this month was these ST Amiga format magazines. Now, I used to read ST format as a kid. I collect them now. I have quite a big collection of ST formats, but only very recently got into ST Amiga format, which was actually the predecessor to ST format and Amiga format, before they split it off into two separate magazines. And These don't just sit on the shelf. I love to sort of sit and flick through them in the evenings, look at the old game reviews and the old hardware vendors and some of the interesting bits and bobs that you could get for these machines. So really, really cool thing to look out for. These are reasonably rare, but there's not a huge amount of demand for them, so they're actually not that expensive. Like I say, if you're interested in old magazines and maybe even like retro gamer magazines, some of the more modern retro focused stuff, definitely highly recommended and well worth having a look for. And that brings us to the end of the vlog. Now, as I said at the beginning of this video, this is a new concept for me, a new format for me. So I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of background on some of the stuff I've been working on behind the scenes, a bit more in-depth coverage of some of the stuff you may have seen on my other social media channels. I've certainly enjoyed sharing it with you, and I think this is something that I'd love to carry on doing going forwards, provided there's enough interest in it. Please do let me know down in the comments your thoughts and suggestions, any questions, anything to do with my upcoming videos or anything you've seen in this video. Building a community is something that I'm very keen on for this channel, and you've probably seen in my previous videos that I'm very active in communicating with people, taking feedback on board and that kind of stuff, and that's also another thing that I think is going to be very important as the channel grows. So yet again, I'd just like to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If somehow you've sat through all of this not knowing who I am or what any of this stuff is about, but you've made it this far and found it interesting, then please do hit that subscribe button, and hopefully I'll see you around.